Hey, what's going on, guys? Battle Nation Zimper here, back today with another video. And today, guys, before we jump into today's video, I just want to thank you guys for the absolutely massive response to the last video. The last video is probably the best video I've ever uploaded in terms of reception. We just blew that up with like well over 30 likes, over like 400 views last time I checked, and like 20 something comments. So I just wanted to thank you guys for that because that was absolutely insane. Completely massive blow up on that video. We're going to be talking a lot more about guilds. And if you have any guild requests, feel free to drop them in the comments below of that video or this one. But today we're going to be talking about exclusive units, or as they're more commonly called, limited edition promotional units. I called them exclusive units because that is how Z2 referred to them early on. Apparently that was going to be their official name, but then they moved on to calling them promotional / limited time units. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about when will these limited edition units return, what will be the first one to return, and the big question, will they still be limited edition? So with all that out of the way, let's tackle the first question. What is a limited edition unit? So in Battle Nations, there are hundreds of different soldiers, tanks, aircraft, maybe not hundreds of each, but all combined, there are hundreds of different units in the sky, in the land, and even in the sea, all across the Battle Nations field. And out of all of these units, the vast majority of them can be trained at any time, assuming you're the correct level and you have, the vehicle factory, the barracks, the dry docks, whatever you need to construct that unit, you can build it. Even if it's an animal trainer, of course, raider camp, you can build that unit as much as you want. But then along came in 2013, 2 years after the game came out, the concept of a limited edition unit. The very first one was Special Agent. He was the first ever limited edition unit. And for 6 days at the very beginning of 2013, you could get one. And after that, he was no more. You could not get him until some stuff later down the road we'll get to. But for that time, that was the only way you could get him. Immediately after him was a unit called Deadeye. He was the coolest sniper in all of Battle Nations at the time. And he was also called an exclusive unit. And it was only available for 2 days this time. Actually, I'm sorry, 3 days apparently. From March 9th all the way to March 11th of 2013. And if you got him, awesome. If you didn't, too bad. So that's basically the concept. And it wasn't just soldiers. The very first ever limited edition vehicle would also come out not too terribly much longer. And that vehicle would be called Death from Above. But then immediately after, next month, they would release what a lot of people believe to be the first ever vehicle. And that is the Boom Bus, which, by the way, fun fact about the Boom Bus, not only is it one of the most iconic limited edition units in all of Battle Nations, it's also one of only 2 limited edition units in Battle Nations history to not cost nanopods. You heard that right. You could get as many Boom Buses as you want for no nanopod cost. And it was, a little bit steep, but still nothing compared to nanopods. If you're wondering, the only other unit they would ever do this for is the last promotional unit that was a soldier, the last soldier limited edition unit, which was the Unicorn Trooper. Of course, an April Fool's unit. They wanted a lot of people to have it. It was in 2015 when, they kind of knew the direction their game was going, and they just decided to be nice to the community. And while that's lovely and all, it does beg the question of how these units will return. And also, by the way, as we'll get in today's video, some of them are, completely new, random, brand new units. Some of them are just from the game. For example, you know what the very first limited edition animals were, which will be the first ones we cover in today's video? The adult versions. That's right. The adult raptor, the raptor lord, the matriarch mammoth, the boar matriarch, and adult sandworms, literally the adult versions of the animal you fight all throughout the campaign and all throughout the game, really, are limited edition units. You could only get them for 2 days. 2 days, a single weekend in 2013, between February 9th and February 10th of 2013. And if you didn't get them then, you could never get adult animals, which on one hand, it really did make it, you feel, if you got one of those adult animals during that weekend, boy, did you feel freaking special. But it did draw back because you will literally never see a matriarch boar in the animal trainer. You only have the young and imperial boar. You'll never see an adult raptor or, the red raptor lord in the animal trainer. You'll only see the battle raptor and the young raptor, not, the oldest one. So limited edition unit really doesn't even have to be anything special. It could just be something like that, which you could argue, maybe they shouldn't have made these units limited edition. To that, I'd say fair point, but they did, and it did give them a level of aura. So moving on to something like that, which you could argue may or may not need to be a limited edition, let's get into the first real limited edition unit after the Deadeye, after the Special Ops. The first limited edition unit after those two were two very iconic ones. The Railgun, an extremely cool guy with a freaking huge railgun, obviously, as the name would imply, and this cool promotional art of him. And right after that, probably one of, if just straight up not the most iconic limited edition unit in all of Battle Nations, the Blood Ninja. This freaking guy. One of the coolest units ever released in all of Battle Nations. Available for 3 days between July 26th and July 28th of 2013. Also running around with a ninja discount, because even the regular ninja cost nanopods, so you'd get a 40% discount during this time period on regular ninjas, and the ability to train blood ninjas. And if you happen to be lucky to play Battle Nations within those 72 hours and have nanopods to spend to get a blood ninja, he was one of the best trophies in all of Battle Nations. There were multiple guilds that would just show off their blood ninjas and would consider themselves cool because the majority of their members had, blood ninjas, or, their co-leaders had 10 blood ninjas up. Stuff like that really just gave it this aura of just being a cool unit. Not to mention the blood ninja out of all the promotional units is one of the best promotional units, especially at the time it came out. It has some very strong attacks. So not in the factor of just looking cool, it genuinely was cool, as in it was powerful. So out of all the units to come back, I could certainly see an argument for the Blood Ninja. But, okay, we've talked about the Blood Ninja. We've talked about some of the earlier units. We even talked about the Boom Bus. What's another unit that, might come back that we haven't even discussed yet? We have discussed its typing, but we haven't discussed in particular. But let's go ahead and get it out of the way right now, because it is certainly worth discussing: the legendary animals. These guys were one of, if not just straight up the peak of legendary limited edition units, because the legendary series was so good, starting off with the legendary mammoth, which, by the way, only available for 5 days between December 12th and December 17th of 2013. But between that 5-day span, you know what level you had to be to get him? Level 1. I know I'd mention this like every time I talk about the legendary mammoth, but I still can't get over the fact that you could have downloaded this game in December of 2013, spent $5 worth of nanopods to get this guy at level 1, and then you would have proceeded to just steamroll the entire game. Like, imagine going through the game campaign from start with the legendary mammoth. That's like giving the starter Pokemon. It's like going back to Fire Red, Leaf Green. Instead of choosing one of the starter Pokemons, you start off with the level 5 Mewtwo. Like, at that point, you're just breezing through the game. So I still can't believe they did that. But they would, of course, go on to release a legendary boar, a legendary raptor, which, of course, would require you to be higher than level 1. And then the pinnacle of that would be a legendary sandworm, so strong that you were limited to 3, just like the Wimp. A unit's broken in Battle Nations when they only limit you to 3. And he would be the pinnacle of legendary animals. Could these guys be the first to return? Oh my goodness, 100%. I mean, it would be the easiest slam dunk for Madrona to do. Advertise legendaries are back, but for a limited edition, throw them out there to the people, and man, I'd be overdrafting my credit card trying to, buy as many of these freaking guys as possible. I know a lot of other people would as well. So I could definitely see these guys come back. And the only reason I'm kind of leaning it maybe not be is simply because I will admit these guys are kind of overpowered as freak, and you might want to walk us up as a community to cards that powerful. Give us some more weaker cards, like the adult animals, as we talked about earlier. Or it's another limited edition unit that I thought was crazy when I first learned about it. Did you guys know the Allied Brawler was a limited edition unit? Yeah, just the Raiders, just straight up him. Every other Raider in the game is not limited edition. You can train them at any time at a Raider camp, except the Allied Brawler. He is not available. He was available for a single weekend in 2013, well, 3 days, from May 10th to May 12th of 2013, and that was the only time you could get him for a special promotion. Why is he the only Raider to be a special promotion unit? I have no freaking clue. And of all the Raiders, isn't it kind of weird it's him? Like, don't get me wrong, the Brawler's a really good freaking guy, and he's very powerful, but it just seems kind of funny that out of all the units they could have done, they made him a limited edition unit. Like, I feel even like the Allied Skirmish, the Raider riding a Raptor would have made a better limited edition unit. Or the Raider Champion, because that guy is freaking powerful. But a Raider Brawler? I mean, hey, whatever Z2 was thinking, it was their game back in the day, and that's what they decided to do. So yeah, limited edition units, as previously discussed a few minutes ago, can definitely be all over the place. Another unit that I think would kind of be a balance, maybe of not being too bland or boring, but also being, not the most broken thing in the world. I think a perfect starting limited edition unit that, Madrona Games might certainly pick, and if they did, I think would also be a perfect fit, a slam dunk as well. The Imitation Fragment. And yeah, you're seeing this guy right. This is exactly what it looks like. This is what he looks like compared to a regular Dexter Fragment. And as you can see, pretty much identical. Not perfectly, of course, but, very much there. And the whole idea behind this guy was literally just, hey, do you not want to have to grind and waste all of your stuff to try to get a Dexter Fragment or a Sinister Fragment from the AC? Fine. Just pay us some nanopods and we'll give you one. And that was the concept. But they gave him a different name. So, if you had actually earned a Dexter Fragment or Sinister Fragment, from the AC, you wouldn't feel like, cheated out. Like, oh, why did they get the exact same thing when they just spent nanopods? No, it's like the Dexter and Sinister Fragment. Technically two different things, even if they look basically identical. This was the same concept, It would, be different for, those people who got AC. But also, and this is the fun thing, after it was gone, it technically became better than them, because think about it, as soon as it's gone, now it's the limited edition fragment, and it would be the only limited edition fragment all the way up until Boss Strike 10 with the release of the Flying Dexter fragment. Then that arguably became a cooler limited edition fragment to have, only because your guild would have had to get tier 10 to get it. So I could totally see, they throw in the Imitation Frag. I'd be buying a few. I imagine a lot of people would be buying a few. Heck, I think even people, like YouTubers like Gunvi and other Battle Nations players who, already have fragments, I think would still be buying them just simply because of the value of it. It was 100 nanopods and it's a free fragment. Dude, why would I lose all my tank killers against the AC when I could just spend 100 nanopods and get a fragment? Yes, please. So I think that would be also another perfect one to release if they want to go that route, which, again, slam dunk, I think that could be another one. Two more I do want to discuss, which, we will get into. First, I want to talk about the anti-aircraft flacking gun, limited edition unit from the vehicle factory. You might say, wait a second, isn't this guy, just a regular unit? And that's what I thought too, but no. There is an anti-air turn, and then there is the anti-aircraft flak gun. The anti-aircraft is the one we can all train for 10,000 gold in our vehicle factory right now. And then the limited edition version was the anti-aircraft flak gun. And fun thing about this anti-aircraft flak gun, what makes it different, besides the regular AA? Well, two things. One, when it dies, it spawns a shock trooper, which I just think is a freaking cool concept. I wish more units did stuff like that, when died and then spawned another unit. But also, he's freaking good. His stats compared to the regular AA is monstrous. It's like going from a mini tank to a super tank. It's insane. So while the AA, might be able to get a little bit of damage off, some aircraft before dying, this anti-aircraft flak gun will literally kill them for you. It was a good reason, too, because he was thrown up for the first ever boss strike, as kind of a sell for it. And perfectly fine. That was the first time people were going to get aircraft, so it made perfect sense to, introduce him for that. If Madrona Games decide to make him the first limited edition limited edition unit, I think they would have to do it in release with boss strikes, but they definitely would make it work, and he would certainly feel like, something in between, cool enough to spin nanopods on and, nice enough, but also not so overpowered that he makes everything else look bad in comparison. And finally, the last unit I really want to highlight that, they might be able to, possibly bring back or, come back is aircraft. So, of course, just the boss strikes and limited edition aircraft. So, for anybody who, might be new here, boss strikes are monthly events or war monthly events in old Battle Nations where guilds would fight together to earn boss points and at different tiers would get different prizes. But the best tiers were tier 3, tier 7, and tier 10 because each one of those tiers gave a limited edition aircraft. We'll go, for example, the first ever Ball Strike. The first ever Ball Strike Tier 3 was a Wupscrox Spider Wasp, which was a very nice little fighter plane. Nothing too crazy, but still, it was nice and limited edition. The second was the BC-1 Snake at Tier 7, which was an awesome helicopter, looked nice, felt nice, and was a decently powerful aircraft. And then finally, if you had a really good guild, because this guild had to have been strong from the start, literally Tier 10 guild from the first Ball Strike, which was pretty rare at the time, you could get a V14 Maverick. And if you had this bad boy, you arguably had the best, trophy in all of Battle Nations, because somebody could have Blood Ninja, somebody could have Special Ops, somebody could have, all the good stuff of the day. But at the end of the day, you could say, I have a V14 Maverick. I was in a Tier 10 guild from the start. And it was just an aura farming machine. It was one of the best trophies you could ask for, and it genuinely carries some aura to it. So if Madrona Games was to come out tomorrow and just say, hey, we're going to wait till the first Ball Strike comes out, we're bringing back limited edition units in the form of aircraft, I think that would be fantastic. I would be 2 thumbs up and that complete smile about it. And I think that would be freaking awesome if that was the route they decided to go. Now, let's tackle the biggest question about all of this. We know these units are coming back. The Special Ops, the Blood Ninja, the Boom Bus, the Imitation Frag. All of these units are coming back at some point. Pretty much like 95%, you can bet it. It's going to happen. Now here's where the question is. Will these exclusive units or promotional units remain limited edition? And what I mean by that is how OG Battle Nations worked is they would release the Special Ops, the Blood Ninja, or even some we maybe not talked about, like the Armored SUV, or maybe even something like I'm trying to think of another, the Zombie Hunter, or the Raider Recruiter, which were also two decent, especially with the Zombie Hunter there, that's using heavy wording, limited edition units. Now, after some point, I don't really know when to pin it, but actually I kind of do. It's the Secret Vault. So basically, these units, these Special Ops, these Deadeyes, these Blood Ninjas, they would stay limited edition, i.e., they released for, the 2 days or week that they were available, and then you could never get them again. And that was until Z2, in a desperate bid for money, decided to introduce the Secret Vaults. Now, the Secret Vaults are nothing hard to explain if you've never heard of them. I can describe it in one word. Literally one word, I can summon it up. Loot boxes. They were loot boxes before they were cool. Even before Overwatch and every other game had loot boxes, there was Battle Nations back in I think 2014, 2015, introducing us with Secret Vaults and the concept of a loot box. So how the Secret Vault worked is you paid nanopods and it gave you a chance to get cool units, and if you got a really high spin rarity, you got previous limited edition units. That's why they called it the Secret Vault, saying, we're going into the vault and getting some old units. Now, as somebody who was there for the first Secret Vault and got to see all these limited edition units come back in a high-tier clan, let me tell you, everyone in my guild hated it. It was despised. Everybody hated the gambling system. Everybody hated the concept. And most importantly, what everybody just grinded the gears about and despised was the fact that it made these previous limited edition units that were promised to be limited edition unit in their promotional material as well, not limited edition and coming right back. It made them interchangeable. So the very first Secret Vault, the limited edition unit was a Blood Ninja. You could get a Blood Ninja as the jackpot. So if you were one of those players who, got him between the 3-day span of 2013 and have been flexing him ever since, you were now sitting here like, what the freak? Why did Z2 do this to me? Why did they betray me? And that is how it felt. A lot of players felt betrayed by this, and it was a huge stab in the heart to quite a few. And this would only get worse as boss strikes started repeating aircraft. You heard that right. Initially, started as, each aircraft is limited edition, unique to its boss strike. They started repeating them out. They started cycling them, and eventually it got to the point in later boss strikes where they didn't even care and were just giving them out like candy. Really no care in the world. I think the biggest one I always like to throw out there is boss strike 20. I mean, look at this. Literally every single tier is a unit, and not even a unique unit, a unit from a previous boss strike. So, if you had gotten these units from previous boss strikes, you're like, oh, cool, I had to grind out, to tier 10 for my bomber, yet somebody in boss strike 20 now can just hit tier 2 and get a bomber. It really was frustrating. It did feel like, a slap in the face from Z2, who turned, your cool trophy into just a dumpster fire, nothing special really. And, I think that's the heart of promotional units now. That's the heart of the question of these guys coming back. Will they be limited edition? And by all means, comment this down below. Tell me your thoughts. That's why I'm making this video. I want to know the community's opinion on this. I want to know your guys' opinion on this. But for me personally, I will answer two things. Do I want them to be, and then do I think they will be? Do I want them to be? Yes. For me, a huge part of Battle Nations was earning your limited edition unit, whether it be through nanopods, whether it be through an extremely complicated mission like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Raptor, who was one of the best trophy units of all time, or even something else like, an imitation fragment. These limited edition units were one of the sparkles of Battle Nations, in my opinion. Just like boss strikes, it made Battle Nations special. The only other mobile game I can think that even comes close with how, early limited edition units were handled in Battle Nations is literally modern day Clash Royale, which all they do is give you limited edition emotes, which are not special at all. They're just little, gimmicks that, show off an emote in battle. They're not that great at all. And of course, ran by Supercell, you can imagine how terrible it is. So that's really the only thing I can compare to, and it's just an awful comparison besides the fact that, they are limited edition. You can only get them for a certain amount of time, and then they're gone forever. But Battle Nations gave you actual units, stuff you could, fight, play, and kill with. That was limited edition. That made you feel special for having it. So for me, I don't need all of these units brought back, but if just some of them could be brought back as limited edition and kept limited edition, that would mean the world to me, and I think a lot of other OG Battle Nations players. Now, do I think they will? Whew. I think there is an understanding within most modern gaming that you need to recycle as much as you can. And I think that's why, after King bought Z2, they made them recycle all those limited edition units. I think King came in there and basically said, look, we understand you have a nice little niche community here. We don't care. We're here to make some money. And you have these assets lying around from old, troop designs that could be put on your game's market to make more money. We don't care about what special connection you have with the players. We don't care whatever you promised the players in the past. These are units that could be sold in the shop, and we need to make money off of them. I think that was the thought process going in. And if you're looking at it from a strictly business perspective, trying to make the most cash within this quarter, sure, you could argue that. But I would argue it led certainly to the long-term downfall because there were so many dedicated players that once they started recycling these bad boys just gave up. It completely ruined Battle Nations for them. And I think the number one thing, whether they decide to make these units limited edition or not, the one thing I beg Madrona Games to do above all else is just be transparent. As soon as you come out with these units, either say, hey guys, we're not making them limited edition. These guys are going to be recycled for many years to come. We might make them seasonal. You can only get them certain periods, but they will be coming back. Or, just say, hey, we're just introducing them back as regular units. They were previous limited edition, but now they're not. And if Madrona came back and said that, even as somebody who would be disappointed with that answer, I would have so much respect for Madrona just openly saying it. As long as they made it clear from start, perfectly fine. And that's my only request. If they were to make them limited edition, oh boy, please make that clear from the start. Just again, make it clear that these units will be limited edition as they were in early Battle Nations when, Z2 still had all the controls. If you say that, brother, I'm dropping all my cash on limited edition units. I would love to. So that's pretty much it for me. Just basically, if they could communicate it to us openly, I don't care whatever they do. I just hope that, we have that open and clear communication from the start before they even release the first promotional unit back into the game. I would love for these guys to stay limited edition, but completely understand if it can't happen. But my appeal to Madrona Games would be understand that, please, this was one of the best features of all of Battle Nations. It was one of the only games to do it. Everybody loved it when they were limited edition, and you can always release another limited edition unit right after it, and we'll still all be hyped. We just want our previous limited edition units to stay limited edition. And I feel there's a good chance they actually will do that, simply because they're not going to do a secret vault again. I mean, Madrona Games even says on their website that they won't be doing loot boxes or any gimmick like that, and secret vaults were just straight up loot boxes, like in their most pure freaking form. So yeah, no doubt in my mind, at least, they probably will, won't do a secret vault. They won't bring them back in that type of sense, but they could totally maybe cycle them out or make them seasonal. But again, I just hope if they do that, they're very clear about it up front. And yeah, guys, that will just about do it for us today's video. This is a very big part of Battle Nations for me and a few other members within the community. I feel a lot of us, trophy hunters like this, limited edition promotional unit type thing, and can't wait to see it come back in Battle Nations. If I had to pick between limited edition units and limited edition aircraft, ooh, you're asking me to choose between my son and daughter. But if I was forced to pick, I'd probably pick limited edition aircraft, simply because the idea of, just being new to the game and just being able to, eke out a tier 3 with your, young guild, but then forever having that unique limited edition unit, or being one of the best players in all of Battle Nations and, getting that tier 10 and knowing you will forever have that limited edition, tier 10 awesome aircraft, I think was just such a beautiful component of Battle Nations. I would love to see that return. But of course, guys, let me know what you guys think. Do you want to see limited edition units come back? Do you want to see them be limited, stay limited? Do you want to see them be seasonal? Or do you just want them to come back in the barracks and, vehicle factory and just be regular units like everything else? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Let me know what you think of the aircraft in Battle Nations as well. If it should be limited edition units, or if, they should be recycled, or if they should, have their own, building, should just be able to train around the clock. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. And yeah, that will just about do it for us today, guys. If you are still watching, thank you very much for watching all the way through. I greatly appreciate you. If you have any questions, suggestions, have any feedback on any of the limited edition stuff we said, please leave a comment down below. I would love to get a conversation started down there with you, as long as it's respectful and, somewhat Battle Nations related. Anything goes. And yeah, that will do it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a great rest of your day.